is Earth, Wind, and Fire, again, covered for the first time. This is their 1975 album, That's the Way of the World, which ranked in at number 725 in the 1970s on Best Ever Albums, number 71 in 1975, number 4056 of all time. This is Earth, Wind, and Fire's highest rated album on Best Ever Albums. And in Rolling Stone, it's just getting in there at 420.
Okay. So
yeah, it is.
I probably, thinking they have a lot of singles, right? And that's kind of how I knew of them. And I think I always grouped them in my head together with Sly and the Family Stone and Parliament, and just kind of those bands with a large number of black artists, wrongly, because those artists all sound different from one another. So I'm glad I was able to get some differentiation listening to this album. So this is a kind of a very different, mellower type of band than those other bands. There's not a lot of funk on here. It's more of it's also couched in positivity, right? So it's like Sly and the Family Stone before he became disillusioned. I think it's trying to promote, feel good vibes and positive views on the world, and that's admirable. And so there's a lot of falsetto on here. There's a lot of I think there's a lot of harmonizing too, and there's a lot of different instruments. You get organs and some like bass lines and horns and woodwinds and flutes at times, and it's kind of, I guess there is funk on this, but it's kind of like funk with a lighter style of funk or something. It's also very smooth, a lot of smooth singing and just gentler in a certain way than the other bands that I mentioned. I think the standout or the most popular tracks on this would be Shining Star or That's the Way of the World. Those are probably the two biggest singles, the first two tracks on the album. And so, hearing those, you kind of get a feel for the album as a whole. I struggled to kind of grab onto anything in particular outside of the overall feeling I got from the album. There wasn't, I didn't feel as strongly as I did about some of the other albums, even like tracks on the Bee Gees or things like that. I thought overall they kind of maintained the same positive tone throughout, and they are trying to send a message, and I think they accomplished that. But musically, I'm not sure how much I responded to this album.
Gotcha. Well, I responded quite a bit to this album. There's a lot of different instrumentation. There's a lot of brass on this album. Mm-hmm. There's synthesizer. There's like conga type drums. All kinds of layers in there. I loved the percussion on this album. The bass was good, but it's not like traditional funk or stuff where the bass is so out front. You have to at times search for it a little bit, which is different than I think what we think of as quote unquote like black music at the time, right? That was sort of synthesizer and bass music at this time. I love the variety of the types of R&B they were doing on this album. They wrote really good ballads. I felt like their ballads were as good as I was left kind of flat by the Bee Gees ballads. I like the ballads. I like the up-tempo stuff. They certainly front load with two songs that are bouncy. You get Philip Bailey's voice right at the beginning, and I love Philip Bailey's voice. I think for those that might not be familiar with Earth, Wind, and Fire, like, first of all, you probably are without realizing it, because they've got a bunch of songs that I don't know if people always think of as Earth, Wind, and Fire, but they are. And probably if you're a casual person, you may know him from the duet with Phil Collins, right? The Easy Lover duet, which has that distinct voice.
She's the kind of girl you dream of.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Pretty much exactly what Matt did right there. So, yeah, he sings the higher part, right? Compared to Phil's. Yeah. So, but... yeah, I love his voice has always been very appealing to me, and like this is like proto smooth rock that came later, and it's also proto like ballady late 80s 90s like R&B a little bit. There's elements of that as well. I think Josh makes a great comparison. It's early Sly and the Family Stone. It's not as funky because there's no Larry Graham, right, playing bass on this. But that doesn't mean that it's not in its own way representative of the sound in 1975-ish, 74, 75, 76-ish time, as Sly and the Family Stone was in that like 68, 69 period that they were making this. It's almost like it stands in contrast a little bit to what funk was doing, and we did, Parliament the other week, and then the Isley Brothers were doing another version of that sound, and this is another version of it that in some ways ties a little bit even into the world music we've been listening to a little bit. That was kind of my takeaway, that it was a mishmash of styles, and I liked that it was genre bending in a way that sometimes R&B wasn't. I think as good as it was, I think sometimes some of the artists stayed in their lane a little bit, and this definitely veered out of the lane a little bit. So I greatly enjoyed it, I have to say.
Yeah, you're right. It's R&B more than funk. I don't know why.
Oh, it's definitely R&B.
Put that together, but yeah, you're right about that.
It's also got some disco elements, I'd like to point out. That it's kind of proto-disco a little bit too. Yeah.
Yeah, the only song I knew on this was Shining Star, and I didn't know I knew that song until when it kicked in, and I'm like, the reason I knew that is because I believe that was the song that Elaine danced to on Seinfeld when the episode where they realized
that's
that she was
the
a
only way
dancer.
you know that Shining Star.
That's what stood out in my head.
God.
Yeah, I probably have heard it at other places, but as soon as I heard
really
it, I'm
didn't
like,
listen to any R&B growing up, Matt. Holy cow! Yeah.
Nope. And yeah, this is not this definitely R&B soul as well, as I would say that you're getting some soul stuff in here as well. I'm lukewarm on it. I think that there were definitely some moments that I liked. I probably the more upbeat stuff I was more into than the more ballady type stuff. I did see some funky guitar playing, like Happy Feelin' had a little bit of that funk guitar going on. They also had interesting percussion instruments like the xylophone and steel drum I was picking up on.
Yeah, I heard the xylophone.
Yeah, and then steel drum after that, and and I was getting a little bit more of a disco kind of a feel there. So I did like Happy Feelin'. So I think, and even That's the Way of the World, the second song on here is more of that. It's more of a slower tune. And not normally my thing, but I did like that. I thought that was kind of a decent song. I kind of, as it went on, I found myself losing interest. I think this album might, for me, come down to suffering a little bit from wrong place, wrong time. I just don't know if I was in the right place to be hearing this and only listening to it once. I don't know if I totally gave it a fair shake. I'm not a big fan of the what song had it? The fourth track, All About the Love, First Impression. That ballad's got the strings and the horns, and it's kind of on the slower end of things as far as the pace goes. The spoken word parts really, in that type of thing in R&B, I just don't really like a whole lot. I think it's just I don't know what the appeal is with that. It's kind of like I don't even know what he was saying. I was just like, can you sing? Like,
it's kind of awesome, Matt. That's the appeal of it. I think,
I don't know why. You're just talking. It's like I'm like, okay, I don't know. To me, it's a little heavy-handed, and it's not. I don't see how it's awesome at all. It's
what
not
song
awesome
was
to me
that
at
in?
all.
The spoken word?
All About Love, the fourth track.
Okay, gotcha.
And it's just.
You dig it?
Yeah, it's. I don't know.
Matt doesn't really know anybody cool. I think that's the thing that's great here. It's like
I'm sitting there going, I don't dig, actually. That's the thing. You're asking me. No, I don't.
I build mounds. I don't dig.
And sing songs because the vocals are good. Like the falsetto, the vocal parts are pretty solid. I think Bailey's got a great voice. So use it. It's only doing that one song, but I picked up on that. See the Light, the last track. I'm like little psychedelic thing going on there. Psychedelic soul. Yeah. I'm picking up. I don't know if that's a thing, but if it's not, I'm calling it a thing for that. And it's got some free jazz in the background too. So I definitely picked up on a lot of the variety that they were doing, and I do appreciate that. Just not, and Africana was a kind of an interesting song too. You got, it starts off almost like you feel like you're in a spa with the wind chimes and the flute.
Yeah.
Kind of like, it's like, this is nice and relaxing, and then it goes into like a drum circle, it's kind of does a 180, so, and then like jazz funk. So I do appreciate some of that stuff, and so there were definitely moments on this record that I did like, but overall I wasn't totally feeling, so I might need to listen to this a few more times. So, some hits and misses. So I'm kind of in the middle on this.
Yeah. I think you're right, guys, about them bringing the kind of world African music into their sound. I think that's right on. I get the impression too, I have no idea if this is true, but just from looking at their kind of album covers, I feel like they're kind of embracing that like cultural heritage of Africa and trying to like incorporate that into either like their look or their sound, or just kind of that mindset of that, not back to Africa movement, but just kind of like wearing traditional African style clothes and things like that was happening around that time. I think that's kind of what they are doing. There's a lot of like images on their album covers of like pyramids and things like that too. So I don't know if what they're trying to go for, maybe like an African
well, they
type
describe
of
it as
maybe they really like Dark Side of the Moon.
Afro-mysticism is what it's described as on this thing.
Afro-mysticism. Okay, that's what I was trying to describe. So thank you, Earth, Wind & Fire, for saying it better than I could.
I think I like this album more than you guys did. I really like this album. I've always liked Earth, Wind & Fire's vibe. I like that they bring a different type of R&B than sort of just love ballads. I like that they do R&B of a different style, and so I really did enjoy it. But it has a lot of the elements of classic R&B that, I mean, we've talked before that Matt's journey is going to involve listening to pretty much all of the standard bearers of R&B and seeing if it ever evolves for him, or if just the standard, right, is not Matt's thing. So, and this is the beginning to some degree, Matt, of your learning experience, I think, on that. Isley Brothers was probably the other end of it, so that's the two totems, I think. Yeah.
I think if I'm going to like it, it's probably going to come more in a, like a proper episode where I'm listening to it more and really delving into it, as opposed to just listen. That's my guess.
Right.
Fair enough. Yeah. Okay. Well, there we go. And then there was one, fellas. Okay,
Matt,
go ahead. Josh, want to say something?
Matt, what did you say on the stats? Is this their highest rated album?
This is their highest rated album. Yep.
Okay.
One after this is I Am from 1979.
Okay, yeah.
So it's high. I mean, 725 in the 1970s. It wasn't even close to making our proper list, which I guess based on how things have seemed to be going the past year and a half, that's not very surprising.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it is with best ever albums.
Yeah, but it did make the Rolling Stone list, though.
It did.
It does have, which is a different list.
What album is September on? I like that. I like that song a lot.
I don't know. That's a good question.
I like that song.
Yeah.
Is that on I Am? I'm just going to check.
I feel like that's probably earlier.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. I'll fact check.
It is not on I Am, although they have a song called Rock That. That is with an exclamation point. So that's...
There we go.
All right.